and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so glad to have you here. Today we are in Trenton at the State House, where Governor Phil Murphy delivered his annual budget address before a joint session of the legislature. This is a $55.9 billion spending plan, and during the speech, the governor talked a lot about making the state more affordable, as well as some of his other priorities, touching on issues like investing in education, paying for New Jersey transit, and also protecting seniors and veterans. We have some highlights from the speech, as well as reaction from both sides of the aisle and the business community as well.
Our proposed budget will once again lower costs for middle and working class families, as well as seniors, by providing another round of historic tax relief. And that includes the single largest property tax relief program in our history, the Anchor program. Last year, it provided more than $2.2 billion in direct relief to millions of homeowners, renters, and especially seniors. You cannot put a price tag on the health and well-being of our children. I believe this is the most sacred investment that we can make. And for that very same reason, I am honored to report that the single largest investment in our budget is dedicated to New Jersey's best in the nation public education system. Our budget Please remain standing. Sorry. Our budget will increase funding in New Jersey's public schools by more than $900 million. And with this funding, our administration is officially delivering on a promise we have made since day one. We will be the first administration in our state's history to fully fund New Jersey's school funding formula. So today, we are no longer robbing our kids of their future. We are investing in it. And in that same spirit, I'm pleased to say that our budget will include a surplus of over $6 billion, which will prepare us for any rainy days that lie ahead. And I think this is what fiscal responsibility is all about. One thing that is absolutely fundamental to our state's future: New Jersey transit. As our friends in the press are fond of reminding me, I have said many times that I would fix NJ Transit even if it killed me. Bear with me. I appear to still have a pulse, but better yet, I have a new proposal to support NJ Transit for years to come. Today, we are proposing a corporate transit fee. It will provide a dedicated funding stream for NJ Transit at no additional cost to our working families. With this fee, we're going to ask the biggest corporations with net incomes greater than $10 million to support NJ Transit's future. And we will raise this revenue without placing any new burdens on small and medium-sized businesses. In fact, nearly 2,500 companies will see their taxes decrease from last year. My friends, we have crafted this year's budget letter by letter, line by line, to support the working families who have led New Jersey through hard times. Our promise has always been putting the needs of our families ahead of special interests, and we are keeping that promise. With our budget, we will make life more affordable for more families. We will continue meeting our sacred obligations, from fully funding our public schools to fixing NJ Transit once and for all. We will create a new generation of economic opportunities in the industries of the future. We will maintain fiscal responsibility while staying true to our values, so New Jersey is prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. We will invest in the potential of every New Jerseyan, from our students to our senior citizens. We will put more nurses in our hospitals and more educators in our classroom. And we will hand our kids a state that is better than we found it. We will hand them a New Jersey that is the best place anywhere in America to raise a family. A New Jersey that is stronger and fairer than ever before.
Following the address, Democrats had praise for the governor.
A reasonable budget. We had conversation in advance. Looking forward to reviewing it with my budget committee and my chair, and we'll see where we take it.
The governor talked a lot about making New Jersey affordable. This is something that comes up time and again. Do you think that this particular budget address has more teeth to this? He talked about even a surplus in this budget. What are your thoughts on the reality of making the state more affordable?
Well, no doubt we've taken strides to make New Jersey more affordable in the last couple of years, and this budget continues on that path of trying to make things more affordable for all New Jerseyans.
Was there anything that was missing from this speech, or something that you would have liked to have heard that you didn't hear?
I think it was a good broad-based speech. Obviously, there's more details to come out, but I think he hit all the overall points that he needed to make, so I was satisfied with it for sure.
So this is my 14th year as budget chairman, and as I say every year, the governor gave us a good starting point to work with. And I want to thank the governor for giving us a very good starting point. And I think all the work we did last year, surplus and debt defeasance, really put us in a really good spot heading into this year, especially with the softening economy, the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. It allowed us to do the pension, fully funded the pension, fully funded education.
Was there anything missing from this speech that you would have liked to have heard, or you're really looking forward to digging into?
Well, listen, today we talk a lot about themes and priorities. Over the coming weeks and months, we'll talk about details in the budget.
When it came to discussing the surplus, are you encouraged that he's going to be able to deliver on these promises to help make New Jersey more affordable, and the tax relief, continued funding the anchor program, senior freeze, those line items?
So I think the anchor program is strong, solid for this year, and senior fees are solid for this year, and fully funded the pension and fully funded education. I think those things people should take away from this budget, that those things will be in the final budget.
Are you optimistic when it comes to working across the aisle with your Republican colleagues and getting this budget passed by the deadline, the end of June?
Listen, I have a great relationship with the members of my budget committee. We get together often and talk. Will we have our disagreements? I'm sure we will have our disagreements. That's part of the process. But we have a constitutional deadline of June 30th, and we will meet it.
I thought the governor did very well. I think not only is the state in a good financial position, but obviously with the advent of the opioid dollars that came into New Jersey, the governor is using it to address the opioid crisis, the fentanyl crisis. He's fully funding education, which is critically important. He's fully funding the pension, which is important for the long term. I think to the governor's great credit, he had 7 upticks in the creditworthiness of the state of New Jersey. He talked about expanding small business opportunities. He talked about positioning New Jersey competitively within the region. So I think the governor outlined a strong, solid message. I think it was important that he addressed New Jersey Transit and looked at the long-term viability of New Jersey Transit. I think he, and particularly his chief of staff, the former commissioner of the Department of Transportation, Diane Sacchetti-Gutierrez, understands the importance of strengthening New Jersey Transit, and particularly mindful of the fact that the World Cup in 2026 will be in the state of New Jersey, the importance of sound infrastructure, moving people, and providing easy access throughout the entirety of the region.
And that's something that's very difficult to do when you have issues with New Jersey Transit, and there had been talk about raising fees, and go across the river to New York, they have plenty of taxes and commuter fees that people are having to pay. He's saying, hey, we're going to take care of things on our side of the border. So what did you think about the corporate transit tax, and how do you think that will go over?
Well, ultimately the governor set forth this idea, but what the governor understood today is the importance of transportation infrastructure. Chris Calori is moving forward. We're moving forward with the tunnel between New York and New Jersey. There are a number of infrastructure projects that are a direct outgrowth of the Investment Infrastructure Act. So New Jersey's well positioned. Benjamin Franklin said we were the valley of humility between the the mountains of conceit of New York and Philadelphia, but so much of New Jersey, whether it's a port, whether it's a transportation system, whether it's buses, whether it's a rail, whether it's airport, it's about moving goods and moving people. And transportation is the lifeblood of the state of New Jersey. And what the governor understood today is we have to preserve that, we have to keep that in prime condition. But it was also heartened on a lot of familial issues. The governor spent a lot of time talking about property tax, talked about Stay New Jersey, talked about the anchor program. And so I think the understanding of property taxes, which are so much, I mean, when you say that somebody's value of their house has gone up, but they can't afford to live there, that really doesn't help that family. And so I think the amount of time that the governor focused on property tax relief was also good. So some of the long-term systemic challenges of New Jersey about infrastructure investment were there, talking about the bread and butter issues for families, namely property taxes, and then some of the largest social issues like the opioid crisis, mental health crisis. I think the governor, and he also talked about children. Pre-K for every child in the state of New Jersey. That's so important. I mean, basically taking children when they're 3 and 4 years of age and providing an opportunity to all children, wherever they are in the state of New Jersey, making them more ready for school, improving their literacy rates, improving their cognitive development. So pre-K for every mother and every father. That was significant.
Yeah, and that was going to be my final point, is talking about the investment in education and fully funding education.
Yeah.
Pre-K in many districts, I know my district, it is only if you are special education, but universal pre-K, and how to do that without shifting the burden onto the taxpayer.
I think this is one of the only states in the country where we're going to have universal pre-K. Different states have different age requirements, different financial requirements. I mean, what the governor said today is universal pre-K. Every child is going to have the ability to access. And so every longitudinal study, every literacy study says the earlier children have the ability, whether it's phonics, educational outputs, are all improved by pre-K. And so as a father, I think that was long-term, and the governor said it. It's what we do for our children at the end of all of this process, being focused on the day-to-day concerns, but making sure that children have an early start in their education, and particularly early childhood literacy. That long-term will make sure New Jersey's competitive.
Republicans saw things differently.
Well, I think the governor painted a pretty rosy picture. But I think when you peek behind the curtain, you're not going to find such a rosy picture for the folks in New Jersey, right? I mean, we're talking about increased taxes again, right? You're talking, this budget will do nothing to stop the 15% fare increases for New Jersey Transit, the toll road increases, right? There's 140 school districts where aid is going to be cut. $150 million of aid to our municipalities is being cut in this budget. So when you talk about stronger and fairer and more affordable, I think when you look at the details behind this budget, you're going to find that most people are still going to be hurting at the end of the day.
And that is, the devil is in the details, and how do you pay for these programs? Because he talked about cutting taxes, he talked about shifting the cost of transit onto corporations, and I know I've talked to some businesses who are not very happy about that. What is your take?
Well, look, I mean, he's looking to shift he's just going to raise about $1 billion in revenue under that CBT tax for transit. Last year alone, at the last 24 hours of the budget cycle, they added like $1.3 billion to the budget. You wouldn't have needed this tax increase if they just exhibited a little fiscal restraint. Right? That's the problem here in New Jersey. Our reoccurring expenses are never paid by our reoccurring revenues. And, every household in New Jersey balances their budget that way. Not here in New Jersey. We spend more than we take in, and then we try to balance the budget based on surplus. And that's just no way, that's a cocktail for disaster. It's no way to balance a budget.
Are there areas in this state where you, or in this budget, where you say, hey, we can definitely save money here, that the governor didn't talk about? He did mention, hey, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't ask my own family to do. So again, but we didn't get into a lot of those details of where there would be cuts.
Well, look, I don't even think you need to make some cuts. I think what you could do is you could redo the debt defeasance program that he talked about. The Republicans put forth a plan that showed if you restructured that debt defeasance, you'd save millions of dollars more than his proposal. There's a whole bunch of things that we can do to save money across the board. But, the Republicans for years have not had a seat at the table. And what we're asking for this year is to have a bipartisan budget approach with some transparency, and openness so that everybody knows what's happening. It's not just a last-minute budget deal, at the end of June that has to get signed, before the clock strikes 12.
How optimistic are you that will happen, because Democrats have control of the Senate, of the Assembly, and of the governor's office? And this has happened in the past before when Republicans have had control. So how can it be different this cycle?
Well, it's different now because the Democrats have control of both houses of the legislature, and they have control of the front office. So if there was a Republican governor and a Democrat legislature, there'd be more checks and balances. That's not happening now. That's what we have to get back to. We need some checks and balances in our government, so it's not just one-party rule. When it's one-party rule, politics plays a role in every budget process.
And how optimistic are you that that will happen this year? Because we already have a governor whose wife is running for U.S. Senate. We have a gubernatorial race that is already kicking into gear with members here, Senator John Bramnick already having been announced as a candidate.
Well, look, I can always be hopeful. I can tell you that we have a very talented budget team in the Senate, and our members are going to question the commissioners, they're going to question the treasurer, they're going to look at every aspect of this budget, and we're going to do what we have to do to try to save our residents, money for their home expenses. We want New Jersey to be more affordable. We don't want people to have to leave when they retire. That's what it's all about.
He says a stronger and fair. But if you cut support for over 100 municipalities, that's not fair. That's politics. So if he was to actually make those communities, give them what they had in the past, then we're moving towards fairness. But we know a lot of these decisions are political. I get that, but that's not fair. So I would hope the legislature would reconsider and make sure all the municipalities are fully funded, not just the ones that are connected to the majority party.
The governor talked about making the state more affordable for everybody in the state. He touched on New Jersey Transit and a corporate transit fee. What are your takes on some of those other points?
Well, corporations have suffered enough. See, it's easy to say, hey, guess what? We'll take the money from the corporations. But in essence, what you're doing is you're forcing corporations out of the state. You're forcing those corporations to raise prices. It's not a net even game. So when you say nobody's paying, it's not true. Look, I got to tell you, when he talks about an inclusive state, he talks about the inclusivity of New Jersey. Everyone feels good about that. But let's be fair to Sussex County and Ocean County and Cape May County, not just counties where the politics are good for the majority party. That's all I'm saying. Otherwise, I always enjoy listening to him, and his jokes are getting better. Next year, I think he'll be a 7 or 8 on the comic scale.
You are obviously running for governor, but you still have a job as state senator to get this budget through, to get it passed by the end of June. If you had your druthers, where would your priorities be? Where did he get it right? Where did he get it wrong?
Well, the priorities are don't give $1 billion in pork. You don't fund a new museum, a French museum in Jersey City. So stop with the Christmas tree items and start giving that money back to taxpayers. But education, fully fund the pensions, make sure you support all of the schools. My priorities are similar, but how I would do it, I want balance. I don't want one-sided funding. I want real balance, and that's why you need a Republican governor.
When you're saying one-sided funding, what do you mean?
Well, these decisions are all made by Democrats. There's no Republicans in the room. There's nobody from the Republican districts in the room. And then they come out and say, we're going to cut the Republican districts, not all of them, but some of them, and we're going to give the money to the Democratic districts. That's why you want balance in this State House.
The business community was livid. Tom Bracken heads the state's Chamber of Commerce.
The corporate transit fee, or whatever the new name is the surcharge with a different cover. And we were making real progress in New Jersey on the issues of affordability, business competitiveness, and business friendliness. This is going to fly right in the face of that. It's going to turn us back. And the whole issue of fair and stronger. The governor's done a great job of making it a fair economy. Stronger needs a lot of work. And as I said, we were making progress, and now we're going backwards. And I didn't hear him mention one thing about business. There was no mention of the business community. The biggest problem we have in our state is creating an economy in the future that's going to fund all this stuff. And what he said today is going to pay another big hurdle in our attempt to do that. So, if business isn't important, just tell us, because you have to provide for business. I heard nothing about business today. And most of what he talked about today was giving people something today. Tomorrow is the problem. And there was nothing about tomorrow in that, except that the transit fee is going to be in perpetuity. So those are my comments.
The governor's wife, Tammy Murphy, was not at the speech. She's running for U.S. Senate, and those who follow New Jersey politics say that was a strategic move.
It was odd that she wasn't here, but I think it would have been more odd if she were here, because is she here sitting as the First Lady, or she is here sitting in the front row as a preferred Senate candidate, which doesn't look good. And that has been one of the problems that we've been seeing with her campaign, is this sense of that she's having it handed to her. And I think that we're seeing a lot of reaction among rank and file Democrats against that. So you don't want to continue to give that impression that she's getting that preferential treatment, that she's getting that seat up front. She's getting airtime, as it were, because you're the governor. There had been some discussion with all the things that he's trying to accomplish, with fully funding the pensions, fully funding the school formula, and fixing New Jersey transit in advance of the World Cup coming to the state. You need to raise the money from someplace. And so they were talking about some broad-based taxes before this speech, like sales tax and so forth. Those things are politically unpopular. So let's focus on a corporate tax rather than a sales tax. At least before we get to the primary, we don't want to discuss those things. And I think that might have been some evidence that he's thinking about his wife's future in crafting the budget as well. So while Tammy Murphy wasn't here in person, I think her presence was very much felt in what we saw coming out of this budget.
What do you think the average New Jerseyan is going to take away from this budget? He did talk about making the state more affordable. When he talked about raising taxes on transit, he shifted that to the business community. I know the business community is not happy about that, but what do you think the takeaways might be? And that's something that you're going to be looking at as you are polling people in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. One of the things that we do know is that people don't pay attention to the nuts and bolts of a budget. They look and say, how are my kids' schools doing? How's the cost of living here in the state? Can I afford to live here? Property taxes are going up. The housing values are going up. So if I'm selling a house, it's great. But if I'm buying one, it's not so. And so we're going to try, we need to look at all those issues. I don't think we're going to see a reaction to this budget per se. There wasn't anything that jumped out of this budget to me as somebody who reads public opinion and would say, oh, this is something that the vast majority of New Jerseyans are going to pay attention to specifically. But I think the overall sense of what direction are we going in? Is he managing our finances well? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Are things going to get better? Or is this something where I'm going to enjoy the benefits of living in New Jersey for now, the good education system, the good transportation system, the accessibility to jobs, but maybe I won't be able to afford it later. And that's something that we keep paying attention to in our polls as something that suggests down the road that's the problem. And so I think his discussion about some of the retirement benefits and the retiree benefits that he has in this speech are an indication that he understands that that's a problem right now, is that you might have these people who are earning a good job, earning a good wage, paying taxes into the system right now because they have their kids, they have their family, they have their jobs, but down the road, they're going to want to leave New Jersey, and he realizes that's not going to be good for the state. So I think we saw that play a little bit. Now, it'll take years before we see whether there's actually any effect to that.
Well, and that's something that he did talk about. I'm trying to take care of every New Jerseyan. If you are a young person, to those who are retiring, and he did talk a little bit about a retirement program for seniors. So it is a huge issue in New Jersey. People who have lived and worked in New Jersey all their lives, they can't afford to retire here and stay here.
Right, and that's one of the things that we've been seeing in our polling it's one of the things that we've been seeing in our polling over the last few years, is that people say New Jersey is a good place to live. If you're looking for the job through the job market, if you're looking for accessibility to all sorts of amenities, if you're looking for a good education system. But if you're looking to live on a retirement income, it's not so good. And while they're not leaving in droves right now, we're looking at, and when we poll, we see this, is that those folks who are going to retire in 5, 10, 15 years are starting to indicate that they might leave at a higher rate than people are leaving the state right now. That's what you got to worry about. And I think there was a recognition of that in what the governor has proposed in terms of helping those people who retire to stay in the state.
And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.